Good evening, everybody. Thank you for coming. Welcome to, man, it's been a minute, I guess. This is the first NAWP event of the new year. We did have the Hanukkah reading in December, and before that, it had been several months. So thank you for still paying attention to the NAWP out there in the internets, in the wilds of the internet, and thank you for being here tonight. I'm super excited for a wide range of reasons, but one is I'm a big believer in calling out the elephant in the room, no pun intended. But a lot of folks probably not necessarily feeling great this week, and or maybe you are. I don't know. We're all different. Much love to everyone. But poetry can, I find, always help, right? So I'm glad that you all made time to be here tonight, because words are always worth our time. I would like to say, or I would like to think. We are going to follow kind of a standard NOP structure here. For those of you who are new, I do often forget, get ahead of myself. NOP is our reading series. It does stand for Not at AWP. No shade to the AWP universe, but Jared Beloff and I started this organization a couple of years ago after making a bunch of social media jokes about not being able to go to AWP, and we were attending NOP instead and, doing laundry and like reading books on the couch, and stuff like that. And then it kept going. So here we are. Hoping to do monthly readings for at least most of 2025. We will have one every month through May. So keep an eye on the Blue Sky account, if nothing else, for those dates, and join us again down the road. All right, we are going to go alphabetical. Huge thank you and shout out and nod of appreciation to Francis, Robert, and Wendy for being our readers tonight. Three outstanding poets. I'm really, like I said, I was looking forward to this for a lot of reasons. That's the other reason. All three of these are outstanding poets. So we got a good night lined up for us here. We usually just do these alphabetical. So I'm just going to toss it over to Francis to be our first reader. And oh, readers, by the way, feel free to introduce yourself. However much or little you would like. So Francis, tell us a little bit about who you are and then take it away, please.
Hey, everybody. Thank you so much for making time today. I know Robert and Wendy and I really appreciate you taking time out of your dog walks and your kid time and stepping away from work, whatever you're doing to hang out with us. So thank you. I'm Frances Klein. I'm a poet, a teacher, and calling in from Southeast Alaska over here. And I am going to be reading from my new book, Another Life, which comes out in about 2 weeks. It comes out on February 1st. This is my first full-length book, but I do have a few chapbooks. Eventually I can throw some links in the chat, but I am going to start with, kind of jump right in, and I'm going to start with the first poem from my collection, which is called Resume. I put in 2 years at the Jack-o'-lantern factory, awarded Nosehole Cutter of the Month 10 months running. I priced freight at a drugstore where cruise ship workers bought instant noodles by the pallet. I was head assistant to a reverse pest removal expert, working overtime, putting bats and raccoons back in attics, coaxing possums and skunks back under crawl spaces. For a long time, I've been angry. One summer, I was a living mandala, folding t-shirts all day on one side of a table while tourists unfolded them on the other. If beauty is impermanence, my table and I were the most beautiful couple the doc had ever seen. I was a museum docent for a culture not my own, telling stolen stories while the totems listened in. I was a photo model for an illustrated pain scale, making every face from 1 to 10, no acting required. I was an apprentice librarian new to Dewey's ways. Once I went on vacation, so my coworkers say, working from home for a 7-pound boss, on call as a living buffet all hours of the day and night. Then I was a professional bathroom poet, hired by the coolest bars and coffee shops to cover low-lit stalls in clean limericks for obscene prices. I have frequently been a complication, a wrench in the spokes. I was an AM DJ, spinning theories into facts after midnight, giving equal airtime to Sasquatch truthers and moon landing deniers. I keep applying for a position at the All Better Business Bureau. Any opening, any department. Miraculously healed, finally over it. I even put in for an entry-level spot in Road to Recovery. I leveraged every relationship, networked my ass off, called in every favor. All my resumes bounced back, the rejections kind but dismissive. You'll be a great candidate, they say, once you get some experience.
So good.
I am going to skip around a little bit. A lot of, not all certainly, but a lot of my book is about, parenthood and pregnancy and kind of that process. So I am going to read one called Pregnancy Tracker. Those of you who have had babies or been around people who are pregnant know you can get an app that will tell you every week like how big the baby is, but they use some pretty strange comparisons. So this is Pregnancy Tracker. This week, your baby is a lemon the size of a golf ball, a Boeing 747 the size of a hummingbird. Your baby is a blue whale the size of a bait herring, a neon sign the size of a light socket, a 200-year-old oak the size of an acorn. Your baby is an old-growth forest the size of the Preservation Society's budget, a 40-hour work week the size of a single meeting. This week, your baby is a multi-hour cross-department meeting the size of an out-of-office message, a time zone the size of a wristwatch, a library the size of a zip file, a body of work the size of a single pull quote. Your baby is an ever-expanding, unboundaried universe the size of a postage stamp, limitless potential the size of realized talent, an 8-lane freeway the size of the life in the rearview mirror. Okay, continuing to jump around a little bit. See if I can track down. I'm going to read, you're not supposed to have favorites. You're not supposed to have favorite children. You're not supposed to have favorite poems. We do anyway. This is one that I wrote in kind of homage to Lucille Clifton. This is called Prayer for the Dudes Who Catcalled Me in Front of My Toddler. I pray you reach your destination safely, but upon arriving, realize that you have forgotten all the balloons for the douchebag parade. I pray the other douchebags never forgive you. I pray you get your heart broken by a mediocre white girl while your favorite song is playing. The joy the notes once conjured dissipates like her cucumber melon body mist. I pray that the people with whom you are most open and vulnerable describe you as a friend of a friend. I pray you unending taint itch through all your days. I pray doctors care for you as lovingly and attentively as they do women in pain. I pray rain and the window of your car cracked just enough. I pray $2 in your account and 2 weeks until payday. I pray crunch of dry ramen when the power company cuts the cord. I pray your loved ones are alive, healthy, and disappointed in what you have made of yourself. I pray all the porn videos you watch glitch right before the money shot. I pray for you fear, hot and coppery. I pray every time you step on an elevator, you feel the bottom fall out of your stomach, the same startled alarm I saw in my son's eyes when he heard the Doppler keen of your scream going by. All right, and let's see. I'm gonna read, I read the first poem in the book, so I think I'll read the last one. And then if you'd like to know what comes in between, you can buy it. This is one called What We Do After. When the word gets out that there is no God and the sky closes like a lid, we all go on much the same as before. The old churches continue to be converted into ramen lounges and spirit Halloweens. The most famous saints still the ones with the glistening wet eggs of Super Bowl rings perched above their knuckles. We adjust to the way our prayers rebound, land shuddering at our feet like stunned starlings. We lived like there was no God, even when we thought there was one. Now that we know better, we go out of our way to avoid crushing the line of black ants on the sidewalk, doggedly ferrying kernels of popcorn back to their hill. We keep extra bandages in our pockets to give to the children of strangers when they fall off their bikes. The bandages have characters on them from cartoons we have continued to make, even though there is no God. Cartoons where the frog and bear say harsh words at first, then come together. In the end, they share a blanket while they take turns looking through their telescope at the empty, star-filled sky. And I think I've got maybe just enough time to do one more. I'm gonna read one that my husband is here because he has to be, but he is the kind of person that that has one of those faces that make strangers want to tell them their whole life. And so this is one, it's not word for word what he got to hear at a child's birthday party, but it's pretty close. This one is called Small Talk. His face a drain she can pour her whole life down. On the margin as the party swirls, interlocking circles of family, acquaintances, strangers making small talk under boy blue balloons, using paper plates to quilt together a handful meal out of single finger foods, clots of children in every corner, under every table, lips red with punch like they dipped lipsticks from the pile of purses on the guest beds. All this eddying around the whirlpool of his face, eyes gray-blue like the brackish water on the other side of the break wall where she lost it. Her first and only time, all she could focus on, the rough jutting of the rock wall between her shoulder blades, grating as the red head he was pushing into her, brow furrowed, hands on her shoulders as if bracing her for the bad news that would come down months later in the form of nausea, of breasts more tender than old peaches, of a visit to an aunt's house in the country, coming back, empty bra padded with cold romaine that spills out like a story to a kind young man who simply asked, "What was it? How does she know the birthday boy?" And with that, I'm going to say thank you so much again for taking time to be here and making time for poetry. And I'm going to pass it off to the next person in line.
Francis, thank you so much. That was incredible. I know if you've all been in one of these things that I hosted before, I know I say this every time, but it's still true. Like it's like being at a rock concert and the band playing your favorite songs. I'm like, yeah, sure, sure. I love what's the douchebag one? Like so many good lines in the douchebag one. Anyways, those were fantastic. Thank you very much. Next up is going to be Robert Van Vliet. Robert, please tell us a bit about yourself and take it away.
All right, thank you. And I'll echo what everyone else is saying. Thanks so much for being here. And yeah, so my name's Robert Van Vliet. I live in St. Paul, Minnesota, and my book, Vessels, just came out in December from Unsolicited Press. And it is the result of about a year and a half of writing exercises that I was doing daily, where I challenged myself to write a roughly 10-line poem in 10 minutes using words chosen at random and a phrase or a line or a sentence from a book chosen at random. So I'd set the timer and do my thing, and I'd roll dice and do random number generators and things like this. And so I ended up with probably about 150 poems, and I pared them down and chopped them up and played with them. And I worked with 3 different books. So the book is actually 3 parts. The first part, I used the I Ching. The second part, I used Thoreau's one-volume journal that New York Review put out. And the third part was something called the Nag Hammadi Library, which is a collection of Gnostic writings that were buried in the desert around 200 or 300 CE and weren't discovered again in their entirety until 1945. And they are very strange. If you've ever read the Christian scriptures and the four canonical gospels, they have all sorts of very strange gospels. The Gospel of Mary Magdalene, the Gospel of Thomas, the Gospel of Truth, and all sorts of strange poems and so forth. So I chose lines from all of those. And I thought what I would do is kind of move and do a few from each. The 10-line thing means that they're all very short, and they sort of relate to each other sometimes, and sometimes they stand alone, but they do feel like sequences to me. So at first I'll jump around, and then I'll give an example where I'll read one sequence kind of together. So this is from part one called This Folded Path. None of them have titles, so I'm just going to say this was number 5. That which is bright rises twice, once through blood, once through the 4 lit corners of the world. It is good to die by a window, looking out upon the distant law. Where there were 2, there is now only fire, thunder and no lightning, lightning and no cloud. Number 7. Thwart evil, nurture goodness. This is easy to say, but difficult to do, like drawing a bird from a stone. But the sky remembers what the tongue can no longer pronounce. Right. And I need to say something about this. At regular intervals throughout the book, there are longer untitled, well, everything's untitled, but longer poems that I built. I'd never really played with this before, but I did some erasure cut-up things where I took all the poems of parts 1 and 2, stripped all punctuation and line breaks, so I had this big, giant, massive paragraph, formatted it into a bunch of columns, printed them out, cut them up, shuffled them, threw them around, put them through the laundry. And then as fast as I could without thinking, because who needs that, just tried to make new poems out of it. So and then I did that to part 3. And then I kind of went back and forth. It's complicated, but these things in part 1 and 2 are built from the poems of part 3. So they're these little weird echoes. So if you like to do word search, it's going to be good. Okay, so everything true was once confused. The moon beyond this false dawn. Is it possible you never thought the clouds can walk away? It will not come by filling the sky with smoke. It is not enough to owe what the tongue cannot say. Memory makes death as long as love, its reflection in the wind. We had nothing to say, and he said only that it was his own flesh. And we still believe after so much. She said, I will have the same answer for you over this fine anger. I loved only the hope of forgiveness. Beyond the bloodless moon, I asked for peace and lost my way. Yes. All right. And then this is number 17 of part 1, and then we'll move on. I should be watching the clock, but I'm not. So just start playing, hit the gong or something. Okay. So number 17. The mountain rests on the earth. The tree is more than its reach. You can listen even as you kneel. Undertake small things. Give generously. Do not go anywhere. There is blood on the path and fire at the foot of the mountain. So, yeah, okay. So part 2, I used Thoreau's journal, and I didn't until the very end go back to see what journal entries I had drawn the source text from, and only added them at the very end. So the titles this time are just the date. without the year, because I wrote this during 2020, where indeed it seemed as though it's March and now it's September and now it's May again and it's March again and it's still March and is it March? Yes, and now it's October. So it felt apropos. So this is number nothing. They don't have numbers. This is March 14th. When they said everything must die, where did you go? You crawled under the foundation, hiding like a bug bite, trying to ignore how the weather painted you with its red impatience. Like a new door ready to give birth, the darkness refused to change the subject. Darkness opened into darkness, where at last you found luminous traces of the old door. How else did you expect it would end? 51. Oh, okay. Well, all right. This is May 21st. In this strange, outlandish world, so barren, so raveled, we think the mysteries are more interesting than the solutions. We trip over things in the dark. We are like fish trying to stand. 7. Oh, yeah, okay, yeah. I didn't have tags on these, so I'm doing them in completely different order, which of course you can tell, right? Whatever. Okay, so this is August 29th. Because I did not know its name, I could not say how long this melody had been in my head. I did not know if it was true or a fragment I had dreamed up. As I walked up Main Street, I sang quietly, but there was no one in the neighborhood who could tell me what I needed to learn. And then Halloween, 60. There we go. This is the first reading I'm doing out of the actual book. All last summer and fall, I would just make printouts, which ended up being a lot easier, frankly, because you don't have to flip around. I mean, yeah, nice problem to have, I understand. But, okay, October 31st, here we are. The air is dry only because you believe that weather could never be so cruel, even after summer seduced you in an unknown tongue. You knew everything it said was false, but you had nowhere else to turn for help. Winter is a trap covered with withered leaves. Okay, so yeah, so part 2 is called This False Life, and part 3 is called This Empty Tongue. And I think if I had to say which one was the weirdest, part 3 is the weirdest. And now we're back to numbers. So this is number 6. And yeah, okay. It will not come by waiting for it. Does this anger you? Do you want to fight against the implications? It is not like the dawn filling the sky with yellow smoke. That is someone else's prayer, burning like flesh every morning. And you cannot simply call it to you. It is not a matter of saying, here it is, or there it is. You must build it, and you must build it again. Yeah, okay. And this is number 12. No repose can cure your weariness. For this reason, she is held to have said, I am green, and I am what is not green. I am the tongue, and I am what the tongue cannot say. I am the sun, and I am the sun's shadow. And whenever you appear, I will hide from you. All right, 101. Here we go. Okay. So this is a full sequence altogether. I've been jumping around so far, but this is sort of 6 in a row or 8 or something like that. Everything is new. What else? Wisdom listens over the mountains. And we meet. Tell me. What? What? The world. Lightning. Lightning. Red clay to say you work on what is on you. Slow. slow. Rain clouds. A long road always rolling, standing still. When this still has this green rain, and as the wind drives your skin so carefully, and this is spoken by the dusk, the mountains, the earth, buried within the moonlight, the path. Wait, you gain each midnight, its ripples in my head, in the leaves, for the last star, like a reflection. Number 19. How the leaf cannot remember the tree, how the table cannot name the stone. How many times? How much contention? This is false. This is not false. This is the crown. This is the great. 20. They hunt, sleepless, seeking out among the liminal and the vigilant those who long to stop running. There is no place for you in their reckoning. If you turn to hunt them, feather, fast blood, surprise on the snow, this is the only way your redemption will be preserved from them. 21. Footsore under the pitiless sun, lost like dogs crossing parched riverbeds, we staggered on until it was too hot to believe anything anymore, when our bones became vaporous and sought to escape through the smoke hole at the tops of our skulls. Wavering there in the mirage, soft voices caressed us, and they showed great kindness toward us. 22. In order that the cold should not come again, but that there should be the unity of perfect thought, they gathered in the blushing night to audition the right answer, that every star is only red dust sent to smother dissent. Number 23. To keep the peace, they said, and they beat him, all but killing him. Flesh is its own answer, but the night is its own question. And 24. Sorrow endures longer than memory. For this reason she is held to have said, I am the tree, and I am the cleansing ash it yearns for. I am the mountain, and I am the weather that will throw it down. And one more, if I can find it, 132. No. Ordinarily, I would have read this right through, but I had to flip. So 42. I am the mouth, and I am the cry. I am the pavement you lie on, and I am the knee that holds you there. I am the blood, and I am the ear that listens to the blood. I am the one who stands, and I am the one who runs. I am the liberator, and I am the one bound to the stake. I am forgiveness and vendetta. I am the judgment and the acquittal. And whenever you hide, I will appear. Thanks very much.
Ooh, thank you, Robert. That is kind of like I was saying after Francis is like saying it's like a rock show, like that's quite a number to end on, right? Like that's a killer closer, as we would say in the rock and roll world. Thank you, Robert. Thank you very much. And I don't know if you're able to track the chat while you're reading. Probably not. I never can. You got a lot of nice shout outs and thank yous for sharing your process too. Like the whole project, like getting the backstory in the project was fantastic. And kind of, what's the word I'm looking for? I don't know. We all appreciated it. It was very insightful, or added insight for us rather. All right. Thank you very much, Robert. And then we are going to pass the mic over to Wendy Wisner. Wendy, tell us a bit about yourself and then share your awesome words with us.
Thank you. Wow, I just loved hearing both of your poems, really like captivating and resonant. Thank you. And I want to thank Jared and also Mitch, who is not here, for putting this together. And I love NAWP because I started publishing poems when I was in my 20s. Now I'm in my 40s, late 40s, I guess. And I never went to AWP, even when it was in New York. There was always some reason, and include mostly money. Like I was like I was an adjunct professor. Like I had no money. How was I going to pay hundreds of anyway? And then I had kids, and like So anyway, I just love it. And not that there's anything like I would have liked to go to AWP, but it just anyway. So I love the idea of this reading. So I was so excited when I found out about it. And so I appreciate that. Yeah, this week has sucked. And so I have I have this book. It's called The New Life, published this September by Cornerstone Press. And there's some poems in it about, you know, the world and raising children in the world specifically as it is. And so I'm going to read some poems that sort of feel relevant to this or just to the feelings of this time. And then hopefully end on a somewhat hopeful note. All right. So the first one is called The Father. The Father. Remember that September when the city was burning? I ran down Madison Avenue looking for you. The phones didn't work. I felt like a body without a soul. I thought you were dead. Hours later, I sat on our stoop in Brooklyn, a bottle of cold seltzer in my lap, and you, covered in ash, came floating across the Queensboro Bridge home to me. Then it was spring, and you were inside me planting the children. I looked up at the ceiling so I could hover over us and watch it happen. Why did I fear such joy? Now we are bound by the babes who dropped out of my body into your arms, and still in my mind, the city is burning. Our children have not yet been born, and I am looking for you among the bodies, the father they'll never have. And I'm going to read a poem that was very much written during the last Trump administration. It recently was up at Verse Daily, and I was happy because it never really got much love before that. So this is called Dream of the End of the World. The children were separated from their parents, and everyone wore numbers on their shirts like football jerseys. You and I rode the train looking for our kids. We ducked behind a brown leather seat, hiding from the pop, pop, pop of bullets or cars backfiring. It was impossible to know. The train swerved on its tracks, our numbered shirts softly touching. When the dream was over, I got out of bed, peed, blew my nose, then tossed and turned while both our living, breathing children lay sleeping beside me. In the morning, packing lunches, mixing water into oatmeal, I felt solace knowing the earth hadn't been engulfed in gas and flame as I usually imagined the end of the world. You kissed me on the mouth, and something like relief flooded my body because the end of the world was over for now. We could take our kids to school and only worry about normal things. If they'd listen in class, be kind, stand up for justice, not get shot, tackle the shooter, become a hero. This next one is it's also about school shootings. When Sandy Hook happened, I had a kindergartner, but when I heard about it, I had a newborn, like a really tiny baby on my chest, like breathing. And I was like, it's something I'll never forget. So this is a poem kind of written in light of that. It's called After Newtown. Think of the baby, sea curved around your body in the dark bedroom. His breath, his hair. Don't think of the other rooms. Clementines rotting on the sill, the slowly dying marigolds. Don't think of the boy, once a baby, walking into a room full of children. See only this, the baby's hands crisscrossed in front of his eyes, bones hollow as a bird's, little fists jerking on instinct. Love him. It's dangerous to be a baby, a child in this world. Glory to the goddamn peach fuzz on his head. Okay, one more of these. This one has a bit of a trigger warning. It's okay, yeah, another child getting shot. I'm sorry. It's not very optimistic, but anyway, it's real, right? That's what, okay, it's called Reading the News. If you tell me the story of the girl shot twice in the back by her father, I'll walk into this August night, crickets chirping against my earlobes until they stop, just like that, because I told them to. I'll find the crows and pinch their beaks between my fingers. I'll make it so no one can speak for her without permission. The moon won't follow us as she does in the other stories. We won't get lost in the woods. Instead, we'll sleep, the two of us, like sisters. The silver breath of egrets, like knives against our throats. I'm going to pivot for a moment and read a poem that's not in the book. This one was based on the experience of being a mother to a trans child in America, and it's a persona poem. It's Demeter talking about her daughter Persephone, and the poem is really about letting your child go into a world of danger that you can't control. So it's about that experience that I think is universal to parents when your child is ready to leave the nest, but this specifically is through the lens for me of having a trans child. So it's called Late Summer Persephone. It's almost time for you to leave me, but now you're flopped down on the bed, auburn hair reddening as the sun bleeds through the blinds, chin resting in your palm. And it's as though nothing is happening, nothing is changing. You're just my girl, the way you've always been my girl, chattering on about physics class, some weird meme your friend sent you. I've never loved anyone the way I love you, but from the moment you were born, I knew about the danger. It's why I'd lay my hand on your chest while you slept, counting your breaths, your appley heart pounding against my fingers. Look at you now, giggling, twisting a strand of that fiery hair around your finger. You still trust me to keep you safe, and I would never hurt you. I swear it, but I can't keep you here forever. Outside, the black walnut has already begun its slow march toward winter. You can see it at this hour, a browning at the leaves' edges, a dry crackling at the roots. When the earth opens, I'll hold on tight, grip you by the ends of your blazing red threads, but we both know you'll slip right through my fingers. Okay. I'm gonna end with the last poem in this book, which is called The New Life. It's the title poem, and I think it's a little more hopeful. So, The New Life. Because there is nothing more beautiful than my son running shirtless in the yard, pink chalk streaking his chest, wildflowers squeezed in his sweaty palms. And because he's impatient for more cherry blossoms to rain down on his head, he walks over to the tree, flings his arms around it, and shakes. And because that doesn't work, he waves me over and says, "Make it rain." And because I explained to him the blossoms will only fall when they're ready, a wind catches as if it knew. And because it's now drizzling ripe cherry blossoms sideways across my son's face, his father comes out the side door. And because his father makes me feel blossomed and possible, I believe for a moment, this is the new life, and I can trust it not to hurt me. Thank you.
Wendy, thank you so much. Kind of the same thing. Like, I encourage you all to go flip through the chat when you get a chance. You're getting lots of wonderful shout outs for just some amazing work from all three of you. So thank you very, very much for that reading. It was, I always get like, I kind of am laughing, like, you say, well, I'll try to end on a hopeful one. Like, no, it was great. Like, it was like, yeah, it was nice to end on the hopeful one, but like, you're making a joke, like another poem about a kid getting shot, but like, that's where we are, and call back to Robert's poem, like we have to build and then build again. And yeah, I don't know. I mean, this is just kind of exactly what my brain and soul needed right now. Tonight was exactly what I was hoping it would be. So thank you to all three of you for feeding that. We do have a few minutes left, so we can do a little bit of kind of conversation or Q&A. And readers, you're allowed to ask each other questions as well. I'll throw one out there just to kind of get us started. We probably don't have time for too many questions, but maybe a couple. But I am kind of connecting all these dots. A couple of people tonight have mentioned like it's kind of a weird week to be just kicking back and reading poems and hanging out. But at the same time, I contend not. So how how does your writing process interact with the real world? I guess is my question for you. In a week like this, I haven't been able to write anything. Have you, like, how do you engage? Like, do your poems respond to the world? Like, Robert, your project came about in lockdown year. Wendy, you cited the one poem like from Trump 1.0, which for those of us who are was really like Trump 40. Like I'm old. He's been in the news my whole life, and I'm just tired. Anyways, let me throw that out to you three. Like, does the real world inform your writing on an immediate basis, or does it gestate for a while first?
I mean, I would say that it really depends. Like sometimes there have been periods, and actually during the pandemic was the longest I didn't write. I don't know, maybe it was just like the drudgery of every day. I couldn't, I don't know I just couldn't write. But then, um, sometimes something just happens, and the poems come. But so I would say that it varies a lot.
Yeah, I mean my project I did expressly because uh I was getting so frustrated and angry that I wasn't doing anything, that I wasn't building anything or writing at all. And so um I forced myself to sit down for 10 or 15 minutes each day and just that's what I'm going to do. And it's going to be weird and crap, meaningless. I don't care. I have to just build something. Um And because I was choosing words and phrases that were just from, other places, I found it very liberating that I was giving myself permission to not comment on what was in the news every day. Um, I know when I read some of the things, I know that there are direct comments on what was going on a particular day. Um, but it's not like it's coded, but it's sort of a private language for myself. But I think the real world comes into our poems whether we try or not, I think. I think the last couple of years have been very strange. I don't know if you've been following the news, but it's, weird. Um, but so I tend to forgive myself. Like, am I going to write a topical poem? I'm going to write about this experience that I'm having or something like that. Um, I let myself off the hook most of the time that if it's something that is of a concern, it will show up, um, whether I want it to or not. And it might not be something I'll notice until later. I'll go back and look at something I wrote weeks or months or years ago and go, oh, wow, I was totally talking about this, that, or the other.
Yeah, and I would say for me, that a lot of times I write about a current event and I'm like, I don't know if I'm really can talk about this yet, or I'm qualified to, or I really understand it. And so a lot of those poems I like shelve and then look at later and see if, you know, somehow it's harder for me than writing a personal poem, or based on personal experiences, because I feel a little more qualified to write about it and that I can sort of see it for what it is. Like some of the poems in my book, I like found later I thought were garbage. And I was like, oh, wait a minute. Like I'm after a few years, this actually is, something. So
I think I'm a lot like Robert in that I'm not like often directly addressing something, mostly because I feel like when I try to, it's just a string of profanities and then like the sound of the paper tearing out of the notebook. And so often it ends up being the much more like small personal things that when I look back, I'm like, oh, there it was. Yeah.
Those are all great answers. Thank you. And like, I mean, kind of ditto to a lot of that myself. Like, I'm pre-mad that I know I'm going to write a poem sometime in the next year about a Nazi salute. Like, I don't want to do that, but I know it's going to happen, right? Like, I think it was one of you, Robert, said, like, the real world's going to come out, like, whether you want it to or not. I don't know how to do this. Richard has a question. He raised a hand. Do I click something to go to
No,
you, Richard?
no, I think you can hear me now. Yes, I unmuted.
Yes.
myself. It's not really a question, but I noticed, and I just think it's marvelous how this happens without any intention at all, that you could hear a progression through each of the readings, right? And I mean, what I'm going to say is sort of reductive, but I just think it's really cool. So Francis's kind of list poems, right, surface the sort of absurdity of things in some ways. And I know that's not, they do more than that, but especially the first poem, right? I mean, it kind of, it is a way of addressing the absurdity of what's going on, even if it wasn't directly written in response to what's going on, right? Rob's poems are more aphoristic and elusive and sort of metaphorical in the way that they talk about life. I mean, how do you just respond to life? And because life is what it is right now, they respond to what's going on, even if they weren't even if they were written in 2020, right? I mean, and what the whole process of revision is. And then Wendy's poems were an individual speaker, right? And kind of an individual subject responding out of a deep personal experience. And I just thought that progression was really, really interesting given everything that has happened this week.
And kind of mirrors the most people's, thought processes along the way too, probably, right?
And of
Mm.
course, the most important kind of synchronicity here, of course, is that we all wore the same color shirt.
yes.
Look at that, right?
Kind of mad I didn't get the memo.
Got to get on it. This on the wavelength.
That was my bad. That was my bad. We do have time. We have time for one more question. Does anybody else in the room have a question, or readers, do you have any questions for each other? All right, then if you don't, I always have questions, so I like to give you all a chance first. Kind of a lightning round because we are going to run low on time here, but for our readers, thank you. First of all, thank you all one more time, Francis, Robert, and Wendy, for reading. These are all kind of new and fantastic projects. So what's coming up next for you? Kind of your classic creatives question. Do you have another project in the pipeline, or are you just like, man, I just got this one out of my head. Mitch, shut up. Like, what are you thinking? What's next in your creative life?
Yeah. I'll go first. The ironic thing about this book was that it was written all kind of at one time. I've been writing poetry for 35 years. And so I have a lot of backlog material. So it felt very ironic that my first book is very likely anything that comes after this will have work that was written before this, sort of out of order. So what I'm trying to do right now is work on collecting and editing older material and getting it together, which is a strange process because it's not about writing, it's about editing and about selecting, which of course is actually just as much fun as the writing. And if it isn't, then maybe get into a different line of work. But so that's kind of what I'm working on. Everything old is new again is what I'm trying to do.
I'm kind of in that phase where like literally the next creative project that's coming is that my 5-year-old gets off the bus in 5 minutes because it's almost 4 o'clock in Alaska. And you know, he will burst through with creative energy. But right now between like kid and I'm in halfway through a master's degree. The only time that I have to write is like the 20 minutes in the morning before we leave for the school drop off. And that is only made possible because my son gets a school lunch instead of a home lunch. So I keep joking that I'm going to have a collection called the School Lunch Poems, um, because that is when all of my writing gets done. But right now there's nothing. It's just kind of that rebuilding a stash of poems and then figuring out what to do with them later.
Yeah, I wrote most of these poems when my kids were young, and it took me 10 years to write, so don't worry, you got it. For me, I'm actually working on kind of two things. Another just bunch of poems that I've written that that are kind of just we'll see how they fit together. But then I'm also working on pretty concentrated group of poems about a family member's descent into dementia, which has been like this whole experience. But it's about that, but it's also about memory and about mothers and about identity and unraveling of the mind and caretaking, and that's a whole thing. And it's one of those things that I don't know when I can publish because people's feelings are involved, and the person is so that's what I'm working on. Two things. Very grateful to have a lot of words coming lately after really slow bunch of years.
I love all of those answers. You guys are all awesome. Those are all. I feel like there's part of me in each of those. Like I feel like I love those kinds of questions because they're so kind of silly in a way. Like, oh, what are you writing on? Like, as if writing is a simple thing that we just sit and do, and it's not like always in our brains, and like you're just scrambling trying to find time to make sense of it, and the complications of family. Like Wendy was just saying, like I can't just write what I want to write. Like, what a wonderful, complicated, weird thing we all do here. That's yeah, evergreen statement if there ever was one. That's humanity, right? What a weird, wonderful thing we're doing here. Francis, Robert, and Wendy, one more time, thank you very much for reading for us tonight. Audience, thank you very much for being here. You all are outstanding. And I finally got a chance to look around the room. Like, this is an all-star cast of poets in the room, too. You all are fantastic. Thank you all for being here. We'll see you next time. February is Brittany Rogers and Ajane Dawkins will be joining NAWP. I don't remember the date. Check the socials, but sometime in February. Thank you again, everyone. Be well. Take care of yourselves and each other.
You too.